Hello, it's Will Glasgow, the Australia's North Asia correspondent, coming to you from Guangzhou from Australia Villa. Now, this is, you might have gathered, an unfinished apartment, I was going to say building, but epic project. This was to be a project with 600 odd apartment towers along this ridge, on this sort of ridge of forest about an hour outside of Guangzhou city centre. What became of it was, well, hundreds and hundreds of those towers, the structures like this. You can see the red brick, the concrete, and inside, if you're looking, the steel full of Australian iron ore, much of it. Inside these towers, the shells are here, but these apartments were never finished. This project went under in 1998 as the Asian financial crisis came in. The developer went into trouble. Decades have passed with a lot of grumbling, but no development, and here it all sits as a kind of ghost city on this ridge here in Guangzhou. Ultimately, these things are all going to be demolished. Finally, 3 decades on, this project, there's a resolution to it in sight. The owners took their builder to court and lost their case. But the way this is going to be resolved now is that a new developer has come in, a Chinese state-owned property developer. That's at the encouragement of their government here, who are trying to deal with this problem across the country. And that developer stepped in because there's a new rail line that's come on nearby here, which means the property values increase. People can get into Guangzhou. A different kind of owner could make a life here now. So that project is scheduled to be done in the coming years. People who bought their properties here will be able to relocate into there, and then finally the government will get on with demolishing the Australian Villa. These towers that are all around, dotted all around this mountain hill here, dozens after dozens, which to walk around you can see are becoming, if they're not already, a pretty hazardous feature in Guangzhou. In the Australia Villa scenario, as I said, there was to be 600 odd apartment buildings around here. Now, the Chinese state property developers' plans for this project are nothing like that big. They're going to build apparently 10 towers around here. They're not going to retrofit these buildings. They're just too far gone. So eventually, all these towers around here, which have become a bit of a morbid tourist attraction for a while until most of the area was gated up recently. These buildings are finally going to be knocked down, and about 10 buildings are going to be created, built by a Chinese property developer, so that those residents who are still alive, because this was a project that was actually to be mostly for retirees, so many of the original owners have since passed away, but those that are alive or their families will finally get something in a finished apartment in those new 10 towers. Now, they'll still have to wait a couple of years, from my understanding from people around here, of how long that project will take. But finally, after almost 3 decades, apartments, not called Australia Villa anymore, but in the site of Australia Villa, will finally be standing and finished in this area in Guangzhou. So finally, some resolution coming from people in this project, but for the Chinese government, this remains a monumental policy challenge as they deal with this kind of situation, but across the whole country in thousands and thousands of different cases. And in many of them, not with such a wealthy city like Guangzhou so nearby, which is ultimately what's going to allow this project to go ahead. A new metro line's coming here, which is putting up property prices in this area. That's not the case for a lot of the rotten tail projects out in Inner Mongolia and other parts of China. So a really fiendish policy challenge for the Chinese government in the years ahead.